Okay, how's the, can everybody hear me in the back of the room? Nodding, yes, excellent, thumbs up. Um, then we're gonna go ahead and get started. This is the new participants overview. There's gonna be 3 of us that are doing this presentation. Um, please feel free to ask any questions at any point. Um, we'll talk a little bit later about getting in the queue, but you will see the microphones. You'll put yourself in the queue and then you can go to the microphone. With that, I am Karen O'Donohue. I've a longtime participant in the IETF. I've chaired a number of working groups. I'm the ISOC liaison to the IAB, and I also have been working with the EMODIR directorate for a while, working on newcomers activities and various outreach activities. And what I'm going to do is when each one of them, do you all want to introduce yourself now or wait till you're part of the talk? You just wait. Okay, so they'll introduce themselves later, but the preview is Rich Saul's a longtime IETF participant, Michelle Cotton, who's also been around the IETF for a long time and is now helping to shepherd our new participants program into a better and more sustainable place. So with that, we'll go ahead and get started. So this is an overview of what we're going to be talking about today, and we're going to give a quick overview of the IETF in general, and then we're going to talk about what a IETF meeting week looks like. We're going to talk about some of the resources that you have and some of the new participant activities. Next slide. So this is really not the complete history of the IETF. It's not everything that you need to know. It's really a place to give you a starting point, to give you some of the information that you need to get started, and to give you an idea of where everything is, and so that you can sort of leap in your first few meetings. This will also provide some links and some resources that you'll want to pay attention to. It talks a little bit about the structure of the IETF and the leadership and things like that. As I've already said, it does not include how to write a standard, how to bring new work to the IETF, the history of the IETF. All of that material is available in other sources, but not here today. Next slide. So we're going to talk first of all a little bit about housekeeping. And the first one here is a note well. Now you're going to see this all week, and you will, when you registered for the meeting, you will have clicked on it. The IETF note well is all of the rules and the processes that we abide by at the meetings. So we start every session at an IETF as a reminder that you are in an official IETF session, and all of these rules apply. If you go to the next slide, it also has a number of links to specific processes, including how working groups work, what the Internet Standards process is, the code of conduct, and our anti-harassment procedures. So if you have any questions about any of these, feel free to talk to anybody at the IETF, anybody in leadership. And Michelle, a little bit later on, will talk to you about the structure of the badge and what the colored dots mean, and that way you can sort of identify people from from across the room. You'll see I have a blue dot on. That means I'm a working group chair. And the colored dots tell you all of the various leadership positions. The next thing, and this is very important. We used to have manual blue sheets, and that was how we tracked attendance at the IETF. We are an open standards group, so we do need to document the fact that we have people in the room and that they're participating in the process. But now we do all of that electronically. In every room that you come into, you'll see one of these QR codes. And if you scan that QR code, it'll automatically mark your attendance for that meeting. So, and there's a MeetEcho Lite app that basically does that for you. So for those of you who haven't done it yet, phones up, scan the code. If you are unable to scan it and have any issues at the end of the meeting, some folks will be standing by to help you, just to show you how to do that. All right, next administrative item. So that gets to the how to ask questions, which I alluded to earlier. We do have, IETF takes remote participation very seriously. And we try to even the playing field as much as we can between the people that are in the room and the people that are remote. So the way we manage our queues, the way we ask questions, is you get into the queue. And I don't know if maybe Rich, if you could, I don't know, are you online with it? Or Michelle, if you can hop into the queue. So if you have the Meet Echo Lite app, then you can either use the full version of Meet Echo or the Lite version, and you can put yourself in the queue. And then when your time comes, walk up to the microphone. And that way, you know, some of these people will be in person and some people will be remote. But that's how you get in the queue. That's how you ask questions. And that's the process that'll be used all week. When you get to the microphone, we're doing an experiment this time. They're doing some closed captioning. So it's very important that when you get in the line that you announce, that you give your name, because that's how the captioning is going to help get that. So when you get up to the microphone, state your name, ask your question. So I think that's all the basic process, like how to get started. Oh, no, I did forget the COVID guidelines. We are still, the IETF did an extensive community consultation about our processes regarding COVID, and we are following what has been documented. You agreed to that when you signed up for the meeting. As we all know, it's been a challenging few years and the rules keep changing. So at this point, our policy is if you're in the meeting room, you need to be wearing your masks unless you're at the front of the room speaking. They do have some tests available. And if you're out there eating food or whatever, we ask that you keep your masks on whenever possible. So that's it with that. There's also a set of pins, and I don't have one this time, but they have the green, yellow, and red, which is, you know, the green is, you know, I haven't seen you in a few years and I'm ready to give you a big friendly hug. You know, the yellow is, you know, I'm being a little bit cautious. We can, you know, bump elbows or do fists, but I want to keep my distance a little bit. And if somebody is wearing a red tag, that means that I'd really like for you to maintain your distance and respect the fact that I want some space. So there's those sets of pins. You'll see a lot of other pins. There's pins that say, ask me a question, or there's pins that might say, ask me about my BOF. There's also a set of pins that say, you know, if you speak another language and you would like to, you know, identify, you know, to somebody that, you know, identify to people that you speak that language, you can get a pin that says that. So the final thing I will say, and I don't think this is anywhere else, but I see a few people in the room with them. You will have noted we have two colors of lanyards. We have white lanyards and red lanyards. The red lanyards are for people that would prefer not to be photographed. There's in group shots, there's no guarantee, you know, but they're not going to do a close-up of you with your red lanyard on. So if you would prefer to not be photographed, please wear a red lanyard. We have our photographer right here taking a group shot. So with that, the section I'm going to do is the overview of the IETF. Next slide. So the mission of the IETF is to make the internet work better by producing high quality, relevant technical documents that influence the way people design, use, and manage the internet. And this is as documented in RFC 3935. Next slide. The IETF operates as an open standards organization with the concept that anybody can participate. You don't have to physically attend meetings. You can be a remote participant your entire life. All of the work that's produced by the IETF and all the contributions to the IETF are public. Later on, Rich is going to talk a little bit about the data tracker. This is the repository. This is the tool that we use to manage all of our documents. And as you get more involved in the IETF, that's going to be your key portal into what's actually going on. So any RFC that's ever been published is available, and all of the drafts that lead to the current work are available. Mailing lists also have public discussions and those kinds of things. Contributions to the IETF are judged on technical merit and not on, you know, we strive not to be influenced too heavily by policies or, you know, governments or companies or that kind of thing. It's, you know, what is the technical solution that we're looking for to meet our needs? And finally, we measure the success of our standards by them being deployed. We don't have any authority to require deployment and use of these standards. Some, other external people might choose to require them, but our point of success is voluntary deployment. Okay. So I've highlighted on a bunch of this, but this is a standards development organization. Some of you may have participated in other standards development organizations like the ITU or the IETF, or some of the consortia that develop standards. There's no formal membership. It's a self-selected participants. So you don't have voting rights. You don't have to pay a membership fee. It's an open membership type. There's no membership. It's an open participation thing and not a membership thing. I've already mentioned the market. It's based on market adoption, and it's focused on internet technologies. There's other groups that do, if you look at what IEEE does when they're doing all of the link layer technologies like Ethernet and Wi-Fi and all of those technologies, you look at W3C and OASIS and the organizations that focus on application type stuff. The IETF is focused on the internet, the core of the internet. We'll talk a little bit more about this later, but we have, oops. Yeah, just for a sec, because I don't, oh yeah, I guess I probably don't need to go back, but it's bottoms up, and there's no formal voting, there's no formal government role, there's no booths or sales promotions or other sales related activities. This is a working meeting to produce documents. Next slide. So this is the big picture. You're going to hear a lot of acronyms, and I tried not to use them myself, but I already have fallen into it this morning as I'm speaking to you all. You'll see this a couple different ways, but the Internet Engineering Steering Group is the primary leadership body of the IETF for all of the work that's being done. So if you look at the blue, you have working groups, and working groups are organized into areas. So if you're interested in security, all of these working groups will be in an area. And then each of these areas has 2, maybe 3 leaders that help coordinate the work of that specific area. All of those area directors form a body called the Internet Engineering Steering Group. Next to that is the IRSG. So we have an IRTF, which is the Internet Research Task Force, and it has a number of research groups. And the IRSG is the body that helps manage the work of the IRTF. If you're looking at the agenda when you come in here, there will be meetings. The agenda has both working groups, WGs, and it has RGs, research groups. So we meet side by side. Generally, the research groups have work that's either further out, or it's work that is something like the Human Rights Protocol Considerations Research Group. It's not specifically protocol related. There's also the Internet Architecture Board. So they provide oversight. They also do a lot of our external liaisons. So discussions between like the IETF and the ITU, or IETF and IEEE, that is facilitated by the IAB. And then finally, there's the administrative LLC. And the LLC is basically the group that signs the contracts, pays the bills, keeps us on the legal straight and narrow. So it's the corporate home of the IETF. There's a couple other entities on there that are adjacent to the IETF that are very important. The RFC editor is the organization that publishes all of our documents, and IANA is the organization that manages all of our protocol numbers. So if you're working on a standard and you have to assign port IDs or something like that, IANA keeps track of all of that for us. So that's the big picture. Next. So here are the areas that we currently have in the IETF. I mentioned that working groups are organized into areas. So we have, at this point, 7 areas. These change over time depending on what the current needs are. But we have an applications and real-time area, working on things like SIP protocols and WebRTC and those kinds of things. We have a transport area. So if you think TCP, UDP, and QUIC. We have a routing area, does all of the routing protocols. That's one of the busiest areas in the IETF. There's actually has 3 area directors. We also have an internet area. So this is where IPv4, IPv6, DNS, DNS, DHCP, those kinds of technologies fall. Also, one near and dear to my heart, if you're into time synchronization, the Network Time Protocols Working Group is in this area. Then there's an operations and management. So this does both the Yang NetConf side of the house, and then it also does like operations. So a lot of times, like the V6, for example, there's a V6 ops working group, which is about V6 operations, and that's in the operations area. There's the security area, which is also quite large and has a number of working groups in it. And it deals with all the security area protocols and mechanisms. And finally, there is a general area. And so the general area is basically activities that are focused on supporting and updating IETF processes. So, we have a set of rules that we work by. Those rules are documented in RFCs. If we need to update those for any reason, or if we want to have a discussion about potentially updating them, that kind of work falls into the general area. So I've alluded to this a little bit, and you'll see a little bit more detail later on. But the leadership structure among the three main groups that you would interact with is, on the IETF side, there's one IETF chair. It's Lars Eggert at the moment. And he's also double-hatted as the general area director. General area director. Then each of those areas has area directors. And if you go to that link, you can see all of the members of the IESG. And then each working group has 2, maybe 3 working group chairs, and all of those are listed there. A little bit later, Rich will talk about the data tracker. When you go to the data tracker, one of the things that you can see on each working group on the About page, in addition to its charter and its milestones, you will also see who the working group chairs are for that working group. On the IAB side of the house, the IAB has the list of members, which are selected each year. And then that body selects the IAB chair. So the IETF chair and the area directors and the IAB members are all chosen by this NOMCOM process that we can talk more about at another date. The IAB chair is actually elected from the IAB members. In fact, this morning they had the election of the IAB chair for the next year. The IRTF chair is appointed by the IAB, and then the IRSG is selected from the chairs of the various research groups. So that's the leadership body that we have. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about IETF and consensus. I'm sort of whipping right through this and talking fast. If you have any questions, you can stop me, or you can wait till the end. So on IETF and consensus, the IETF mantra is we reject kings, presidents, and voting. We believe in rough consensus and running code. And what this means is we don't have a formal voting process. We don't have a formal veto process. We achieve rough consensus and then we move forward. Rough consensus is when all the issues have been addressed. They may not necessarily have been accommodated. The working group may decide not to do something that somebody is asking, but it's a measure that enough people believe that it's ready to move forward. So dissenting opinions are listened to, but they don't necessarily stop the work, and that can be different than some of the other processes that I've been involved in other organizations. Wait, I haven't talked about humming yet. Got to talk about humming. One of the ways that we do measure consensus is humming, and part of the reason for that is that humming allows us to take a measure of both the volume, the number of people that are in support of something, versus the number of people that are, and how passionately they feel about it. So if somebody asks the question, do you support adopting this document, and you hum softly, you're like, I wouldn't oppose it. I'm not necessarily crazy about it, versus, you hum loudly and you really care about it. session chairs. So in this particular instance, Rich and Michelle and I, if we were to do ask a question and hum, we would determine amongst us what we believe to be the outcome of the hum. And there's a whole RFC on this, because this is what we do in the IETF, is we write RFCs about things, including how we hum in the IETF. Next slide. All right. So I'm imagining that what most of you are here to do is to participate in working groups. So I'll take you back to the fact that the data tracker has all of the information about all of the chartered working groups in the IETF. If you look at the data tracker page for a particular working group, you can see the first tab would be the About tab, and that's going to give you the name, the mailing list, any additional resources like GitHub repositories or that kind of thing. It'll tell you who the chairs are and the area director. And then further down, it'll have the charter and the milestones for the working group. If you go across the left there, you'll see it also has like the documents and the meetings, the history, and that kind of thing. And at the very end, you have the list archive, which is the archive for the mailing list for the working group. So if you're interested in participating, start by looking at the data tracker page for that working group. Look at what the charter and the milestones are for it. Then the next step would potentially be to join the mailing list for that working group. And look at the documents that are currently in process. Some working groups here are just starting out, and so that you have new work that's just beginning. Other working groups are really far along in their processes, and so they are they're already at the stage of detailed comments, and they might have had several revisions over the last year or two. If you have any questions about the working group, you feel free to contact the chairs. I think there's even a button somewhere that basically says email the chairs of this working group. So next slide. So the next thing I'll go to is how new work starts in the IETF, because that's another thing that often brings new participants to the IETF is, you want to improve something or bring new work in. This is also as with the rest of the IETF, it's basically based on contributions. It's a bottom-up process. So the IETF is not an organization that you can come to and say, I see this problem and I think you should solve that problem. What you do is you come and you say, I see this problem and here's a possible solution for this problem. Does anybody agree with me or disagree with me or whatever? And so that's the first step is, people identifying things that need to be solved. If any of you participated in the hackathon over the last 2 days, you will have seen some of that there where you have new people investigating new ideas. So then the next question is, does this problem fit into, I must not be going fast enough today. So does this problem fit into one of the IETF areas? And also, does it align with the architectural principles of the IETF? If you bring a technology here that's basically breaking the basic model of the internet, the end-to-end connectivity model of the internet, then that's probably not going to be accepted as new work. Is the work well-defined and is it well-scoped? Is it engineering work versus research work? If it's engineering work, it's ready for the IETF. If it's research work, then perhaps it's something that would be done in the IRTF instead. And finally, are there willing people to do the work? Because again, it is contribution driven. So if we don't have the people to do the work, then we can't complete it. Next slide. So this is a little bit better, a different way of looking at bringing new work to the IETF as well. And some hints as to how to be successful at it. So the first one is to find find collaborators here that have similar interests, and see if you can find a group of people that you can work with to bring it forward, across multiple companies, across multiple universities. You need to get a few people that buy into your good idea. And then you need to write some initial internet drafts, possibly have a barb-off. And a barb-off is just a side meeting somewhere where you gather that set of people together that you think might eventually support this work. Then you can talk to the area directors in the relevant area. So if you have, a new feature that you think should be added to IPv6, then maybe you would talk to the internet area directors and get some feedback from them. Some areas have dispatch meetings. And if you've looked at dispatch, then that's basically an area-wide discussion of here's some things that people are bringing forward. You know, what do we want to do with it? Do we want to spin up a new working group? Do we want to give it to an existing working group? How do we think we're going to go forward with it? So then you can propose a BOF, you can hold the BOF. But there is a set of slides in a tutorial that's pretty good that's looking at bringing new work into the IETF. Probably needs to be updated a little bit, but it's not too bad. So I would check that out for bringing new work to the IETF. And the funding model for the IETF, this is a question, this is a slide we added last time and the time before because this question comes up a lot. So the IETF relies on support from a lot of different places. To make sure that it is open and accessible and available to everybody. Your registration fees for this meeting help support the IETF throughout the year. Donations, there's a number of different ways to donate. Corporate contributions and sponsorships. And for more information, there's a link there that gives you, that you can get if you are interested in helping support the work of the IETF going forward. Next slide. So finally, a little bit on IETF participants and culture. IETF, it's a culture in addition to an organization. It's very passionate, very smart people who care very deeply about the technologies that they're working on. So, if you have a question, don't be shy. Just go right up and ask. As you all have already gathered, it's pretty informal dress code. This is a working meeting, and so we want you to be comfortable. The most important value here is the technical excellence. So if you have done your work, if you're implementing solutions to problems, then that is very valuable. So we definitely do your homework, but definitely feel free to ask questions. And then the last thing is, as you are here for a little while, you will note that, people have been here for a fairly long time. A lot of times they develop close relationships. You'll see people continue participating in the IETF as they move from company to company with that level of engagement. Next slide. And this is, so at this point, I'm going to turn over to Rich.
Okay. Hi, my name is Rich Sauls. I work at Akamai. As Karen said, when you say your name at the mic before speaking, typically you say, name and employer. So for identification purposes, everyone at the IETF participates as an individual. People who have been here a long time will say things like, Erica Scrolla, Mozilla. And you're like, what was that? But you'll get used to it. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so there's a lot going on during the week. We have about 1,600 people, I think it is, here registered for this meeting. We call it a meeting, not a conference, because we're trying to get work done as opposed to like hearing vendor presentations and stuff. About 1,000 of them are local, which is a fair amount. This is also the first time this facility has hosted an international meeting, certainly at this size. So that's pretty cool. Birds of a feather, Karen alluded, that's an informal gathering of people to discuss a particular topic area. The research group, the IRTF, meets in conjunction, follows the same structure as the IETF. Pedantically, it's different, but in reality, it's not quite. There are area-wide sessions. So for example, security director will meet to discuss topics of security, transport. Each of the areas generally has an open public meeting to discuss anything related to that area. In addition, each area has a dispatch group where people can present and say, I think we should work on this. Here's my draft, or here's some slides. All I have right now is slideware. What do we think should happen? And then the dispatch group will, it's another working group, will come to a consensus and say, okay, yeah, you should take this draft and have an area director sponsor it, or we should recommend that they spin up a new working group for it, or go have a BOF and see if there's enough interest. The hackathon was yesterday and today. That's where people get together and work on implementations, either interoperability focused or just general prototyping focused of IETF technologies, things that are documented in RFCs or more usefully sometimes internet drafts before they become an RFC. The code sprint is where we work on the data tracker. Social events are only on the in-person thing. So if you're on the IETF, on the 116 attendees mailing list at this point now, the list will get flooded with, hey, I need a social ticket, because there are a limited number and they sell out quickly. There are also various tutorials. This is one of the tutorials. The host organization gets to sponsor, as part of sponsoring, gets to give a lunchtime seminar on something that's of interest. After or before the reception ends this evening, there is Hot RFC. Here it stands for request for conversation. It's sort of a lightning round where people, not unlike the Pekka Kucha, but the intent is you have 5 minutes to say, here's what I'm working on. If anyone else is interested, come see me. There's side meetings. There's a wiki page. If you go to the About Meeting Information section of the IETF, there's a room set aside for informal meetings, or 2 rooms, I guess. Open time. There's breaks, snack breaks, lunch breaks, and so on, where the hallway conversations are very, very useful and very important, and a key thing, intangible benefit of the IETF. Next. There is a lot going on. Okay, so the biggest and arguably the most important part of the IETF is the working group sessions. So the working group sessions are just like this. People will come up, the chairs will sit here, or if there's no room, also there, like me. There was an agenda that's set ahead of time. It should be posted in the About page or under the meetings for each of the working groups. If you go to the agenda for the overall IETF meeting, there's little icons that can let you click and see the information. People presenting their drafts will stand up at the front like this. And this video and audio is streamed out live for registrants. They're also recorded and available on the IETF's YouTube channel. So if you want to see what I looked like 3 years ago, you can go find that. I got better looking. So, but the main difference, or thing that's different from other SDOs about our working group meetings, is when people are presenting, they are generally only talking about what has changed since the last time they met. So you will not find a general overview, unless it's the very first version of a draft, of what the draft is. So, pardon me, you have to read the drafts and understand, because someone is just going to give a diff between last and now. You'll be lost if you don't know what the last was. Okay, as I said, as it says in the slide there, sessions are streamed, recorded. The charter is in the data tracker, datatracker.ietf.org, or dt.ietf.org, shorthand. That lists the things we're working on, and then each individual page will have a pointer to the draft documents. These days, much work is done on GitHub. So there will often be a link that says, alternate additional resources. Here's the GitHub repository for the draft. The official versions of the draft, what's called the published versions, editor's copy versus the real draft, they're stored and available through the data tracker. The ongoing thing, people will now start to submit change requests as pull requests. We're trying to balance how we do work in GitHub versus how we do work on the IETF mailing lists. The official response for legal and historic purposes is that all official things are done on the IETF mailing lists. Next. Birds of a feather, there are, I think, 2 or 3 this time, as Karen mentioned. They're informal sessions from at least the American phrase, birds of a feather flock together. You're trying to see if you have enough general people, enough of a community or sub-community interested in addressing this problem. And then the next step would be you could form a working group or not. Sometimes they meet, usually they meet once, sometimes they'll meet twice. Next. IRTF, since we're running short on time. There is, as usual, there is an RFC that describes how these things work and how they're related. There is, I forget, there's another slide about the IRTF gives networking prizes for the best IETF adjacent papers. And those are presented at the IRTF open session. Very interesting to find out what the academic side is doing for our engineering-oriented work. Next. Often grad students get the prize, and their prize includes free attendance at the IETF things. I mentioned the area-wide sessions, plenaries, there's lunch talks. Plenary is a Latin word that means all of us together. Thought that was interesting. The reception this evening will have free food and some drinks. There will probably be a presentation of what happened at the hackathon yesterday and today. There is an administrative and technical plenary where the IETF leadership is introduced. The nominating committee right now is the changeover, sort of the election year change. So the old area directors, and then they'll stand up and everyone will say thank you, and then the new area directors come up and, oh, do you have any questions? I was chair of the nominating committee, which was responsible for picking all of next year's leadership. Most of the terms are 2 years, but things like the board of directors of the legal organization, I think is 3. Next. The hackathons and code sprints, that's a picture of a hackathon. It's going on yesterday and today. It's on the first floor. You can go down and see, and there's all these, it's like joint development. You see all these people huddled over their keyboards, and there's, at this point, I think 12 different areas that people are working on. It's good. The hackathon has grown in size, so the people who are attending almost equivalent to the people who attend the IETF meeting itself. There are people who attend only the hackathon, but most of them then stay for the rest of the week to work on the specifications that they were just implementing earlier in the week. Next. Hackathon details, you can see there's, rough consensus and running code. So the rough consensus is where the working group stuff happens. The running code is where the hackathon happens. And it's, like I said, it's become increasingly important. It has been sponsored in the past by Cisco. I forget who the current sponsor is right now. I think Meta is one of the sponsors. But it's very important when we're designing protocols and specifications, to make sure that it can be implemented. And so the hackathon, collaborative effort of different companies all getting together to work on like quick implementations or TLS implementations or DNS variations, show that yes, this stuff works. Yes, it seems to solve the problem. Or then we come back and say, no, we found these issues that we need to clarify this part of the draft because it doesn't, one person read it as do this, one other person read it as do not do this. So we need to make explicit what the choice is. So implementing hand in hand with the specifying is really important and a key to our success. Next. So next time, register for the hackathon if you're at all can sling any kind of code. Social events. On the left is a picture from the social event that was held at one of the Singapore IETFs. That's the National Aquarium. It was really interesting eating some of the snacks while the fish were looking at you and going, oh, hey, that's my brother. You're eating. On the other side is the IETF Sisters, SYSTERS, for any woman or presents as woman, considers himself a woman. They have social events during the week. It is listed in the IETF agenda. It's run by a mailing list. Anyone can join, and it's encouraged. Next. Another example of the sisters. They get 2 pages. Next. General meeting etiquette. That's my colleague Yov. Read the documents of interest. Otherwise, you'll kind of be lost. Unless it's an area you're looking at for the very first time, it might be, or it's one of the early meetings of the working group, then you can get by without doing it, but you should at least be aware of what the documents are. As I said, they're going to tell you what's changed, not give a general overview of the documents. Behave respectfully and tolerantly. The IETF has gotten much better about this in the past few years. So while we know each other and I can say, hey, Adrian, you old dog. Shouldn't say that in public, except his website name is Old Dog Consulting, so it's okay. Have a good time. It is long days. Starts often, you'll find, especially after you've come to a few times and met some colleagues, you'll meet people for breakfast and start doing technical work. You'll go through the day and have lunch break where you'll do more technical work. And then there's the evening, and you'll go out to dinner together or a bar or something like that and do more technical work. So by the end of the day, your mind is really, really tired. So have a great time. Talk to people, listen to people. Next. Mentioned the online version. We use an instant messaging system called Zulip, which is, there's a web, you can just go to zulip.ietf.org and see it. It's very similar to Slack, but different and better and free and open source. So we like all of that kind of stuff. If you're remote, use a headset if possible. You know, it's been 2 years. We know how to handle remote meetings, or people should have experience with them. Again, I'm also sorry, I'm talking way too fast. Technical questions and comments are useful. Every meeting session of a working group will have an equivalent Zulip chat if you use the IETF, the MeetEcho thing, MeetEcho app. You'll be on your laptop, you'll be able to see the chat and so on. Next. I think I'm done. Okay. Thank you, and I'll turn it over to Michelle.
Or you. It's one of us.
Oh, I'll do it. Fine. Avoid the try to avoid, missed it. Okay, overview of resources. Next. Okay, there are many people here who are willing to help. The bottom up, because that's the most important part, I think, the support staff, this is what we call the secretariat. They're wearing blue shirts. I can't tell what the color is, aquamarine. On Friday, they end up wearing paisley or tie-dye or something like that, because Friday's the end of the week and they need a new shirt. They can help you with anything, and they can point you to the right people. The IETF leadership, they'll have, you know, badges that have some kind of colored dot. You can go up and say, and you should, you know, you often have a new attendee, so they'll be, you know, polite to you and try to help you as best they can. The leadership is also very busy during this week because they have to attend all of their working group sessions. But yeah, there was a funny talk about someone, you know, find me anytime except when I'm running to the bathroom. Don't talk to me then. So anyhow, but there are many people who are willing to help. If you see someone, you know, who looks like they've been around for a while, just go up and, you know, say, hi, can you tell me how to find the DOTS working group or whatever. Next. The DOTS, there are two kinds of things. DOTS at the top are official leadership positions. There's a whole bunch. They color-coded. Doesn't, you know, you don't have to worry too much. The bottom is things where you can add stuff. There is generally by the registration area blank tags where you can actually, you know, write something. But there are unofficial ones off to the side that say things like my pronouns are she, her, I, me, mine, whatever it's going to be. But they're useful. It's also, oh, hi, I've seen your name on some drafts. Look, you know, you can talk to people. Everyone should be approachable here for anything technical. Next. Jay Daly is the executive director. He is a paid professional, manages lots of things. You probably have seen mailings from him about, you know, welcome to IETF116. And he signed either Jay Daly or executor at, you know, staff.ietf.org. Next. The secretariat, as I mentioned, the most useful people of the week, without a doubt. Next. The RFC editor, a staff of people the IETF organization hires to do the professional editing and publication of our drafts. IANA, the Internet Assigned Numbers Authority, they handle the assignment of like protocol identifiers, or most protocols have extensions in them like media types. The IETF picks people to do the technical gateway services, and then tells IANA, yes, register this. IANA looks through all of the RFCs and looks for particular things that say IANA considerations to say, oh, we have to create a new registry. So if you looked at www.iana.org, you can find a pointer to all of the registries, which are useful for, invaluable for interoperating. Next. The Ombuds team. The IETF, as Karen said, we take collaboration and politeness and respectfulness very, very seriously. If you find yourself being harassed or concerned or cornered or, anything yucky, technical term, ask to find, for help finding an ombudsman team member. There are also moderators on some of the public lists. You might have seen things saying, we've asked you to stop posting for a while, please, back off and let's reduce the temperature. But yeah, next. Harassment issues. You can go to the secretariat or any other leadership if you think you're being harassed. This is just kind of a repeat. If someone's in the working group says, this person is constantly rude to me and dismissive of my ideas, we can make them stop. And there are a number of techniques we can do that. If they say, no, I don't think that's good because of this, and point out real reasons, you don't want that to stop because you want a really good, honest, forthright technical discussion. But if someone is, oh, that idea is so stupid, we shouldn't even consider it. We don't want to do that kind of thing in here anymore. Next. The knock in the network. If you've already joined the IETF network, right? Network name, IETF, password, IETF, username, IETF. There are a bunch of other ones for IPv4v6 compatibility. There's an experimental network. The Network Operations Center is, I forget what room they're assigned in, but they keep the network running. They show up days before, along with our network providers, NTT and KDDI, I think, here. We bring in really, really fast local connections. We use the same IP addresses for every IETF, which means when I got here the other day, for a while I was getting ads thinking I was in Germany. Now the databases have synced up and now I'm getting proper Japanese ads, neither of which I can read, but I appreciate the localization. There is, near the registration desk, there is a printer. Most common use is printing for remote, for foreign people, printing out their boarding pass, right? But if you need to print out some notes or something, or you want to just put something up on a message board for somebody, the printer is free for use. You can email a file or plug in. Next. The IETF does all its work on mailing lists. It's a little old-fashioned these days, but it gives us a record. It's not like, we wouldn't do it in, Facebook. I'd love to see Twitch videos, but TikTok videos of, TCP v7, but who knows? But we do all of our work on mailing lists. There's a link at the bottom. If you join any working group or you look at any working group page, there'll be a pointer to the mailing list. Everything is archived. They're all searchable. And it is a useful technique. And we do a lot of work these days on GitHub, and discussion of pull requests are often summarized and posted weekly versus via a script so that the mailing list has all the official traffic. One of the things you'll hear during this week is people will say, do we have consensus about doing this? Should we work on this topic? And we'll ask for a hum. And the working group chairs will say, okay, we have a strong support for that. We'll confirm on the mailing list. Means after the meeting's over, they'll go to the mailing list and say, at the meeting, we decided we really want to work on HTTP version 4. Does anyone object to that? So it's a way of tying everything back to the official work happens on mailing lists. It's also useful because, especially here, I'm sure I'm talking very fast, and it's easier when you can read, email messages at your own leisure, at your own speed. If the IETF language was not English, I would be totally lost. Okay, so thank you all for your ability. Data tracker. This is a page, if you see, the links don't matter, but every working group has a short name. TLS, pretty obvious. DNS op is about the operations of DNS. NTP is about the network time protocol. So you see TLS there. Once you've gone a couple times, you can sort of figure out what the URLs are. This shows, what drafts we're working on, the state of them, how long it's been. So at the bottom there, it says, the external PSK, pre-shared key guidance. It's been waiting for almost more than half a year for the leadership to respond. It happens, right? We're all volunteers. And that's very old. Ben is no longer an area director. Next. MeetEcho, this is a custom tool. You'll see the gentleman, small company in Italy, nice red jacket, is very stylish. They set up, all of the cameras, handle the streaming live on the internet. The sessions, then a day or two after each individual meeting, the sessions, the videos were posted to YouTube. There are practice sessions if you're a working group chair, but unlikely anyone attending this meeting is a working group chair. Next. Zulip, that's our chat system. I was one of the people who helped convince the tools team to use Zulip. It's the greatest thing since Slack. It's better than Slack. Anyhow, but we're just in the process of moving off of XMPP, which was the messaging protocol the IETF did. So it's not rough, but we haven't quite got all the way there yet. But in terms of, do we create a new stream topic for every meeting? When and how do we do these things? So it's going to be subject to a little bit of change, but you'll find in the data tracker the page to the Zulip chat. And you can follow up things with just an informal instant message. Certainly during the meeting, you can find it. The chat stream is a useful, what we would call a back channel. It's also a way for remote attendees to say, hey, would somebody please say, I can't go to the mic, obviously, because I'm in Malaysia. Please ask this question. And we have a designated volunteer who will phrase the question up at the microphone for local meetings. Next. Some additional resources. Getting started, there's a newcomers thing, and there's various other mailing lists. The one-stop shop at the bottom is the most important, and the glossary. Okay, and now I'll turn it over for real to Michelle this time.
Hello there, my name is Michelle Cotton. I work for the Secretariat, and if you're on the new participant mailing list, I'm the one sending all the messages. So it's very wonderful to see you all in person, and I hope you have an absolute wonderful week. I'm here just to quickly review what's available to you as a new participant here at the meeting, and also to cover some of the other activities that are going to be happening during the week, just to highlight them. So as a new participant here at IETF116, we've got this particular session, which is just the general overview, hoping to give you a little bit of information to let you know how things work. It's a lot to take in for just this 1 hour session. So you can always refer back to the slides. As Rich and Karen have both said, please ask questions. We are always here to help you. Later this afternoon, we have a session. It's called Quick Connections. The easiest way to describe it is kind of like a speed dating. We have different tables with some experienced IETFers at the different tables. And you get to circulate among those tables and ask questions, maybe talk to them about what you're interested in, and maybe they can guide you where to go. But it's a really great opportunity to be able to meet some experienced IETFers, make some quick connections, and they can help guide you at least for maybe your first few days. On Monday night, we have a new participant dinner. You do have to pay a little bit for a ticket. It's not an IETF sponsored event. It's actually something the Secretariat puts on, but it's an opportunity to get together with other new participants. Again, make some connections, talk about why you're here at the IETF, and possibly make some new friends. So I think we do have a few spots left. So if you want to have a dinner, please check it out on your attendee dashboard. There is a place there to RSVP, and you go through using your registration number. If you have any problems with that later, please come see me and I'll be happy to help you. And then on Thursday, we have a new participant social hour. Again, since it's later at the end of the week, it's a chance to continue networking, talk about how your week went, what was interesting. And then we also like to get a little feedback from you as a new participant. What went well? What do you wish that you would have known before attending the IETF? And also you get an opportunity to meet a couple IETF leadership folks. So possible ISG members or IAB members will be attending to be able to say hello. All this information is on the agenda, so you can always find what time and where these things take place. And then also on the mailing list, I've sent messages with the same information. Next slide. Other activities that aren't new participant focus, but are good things to go to. Tonight we have the welcome reception, food, drinks, and there's going to be some presentations there. After that, kind of overlaps with the reception, is hot RFC. So that's a chance for if people have new ideas, maybe questions they're trying to get answers to, bringing some ideas to the IETF community. It's just a chance to do a lightning talk, really quick presentations, just to stir up some interest and see if there's people who might say, hey, that's something I might want to work on. And then you can connect with some fellow IETFers. As Rich mentioned, there's a sisters group, and on Monday there's a networking morning event. And then on Wednesday, we do have the IETF plenary, which is that more administrative focus session. It talks about how many attendees, how many countries were represented at the IETF, and this particular time around, there's a little bit of switching of leadership. So we have some new leadership coming on board and some leadership who have been with us for a couple of years and they're exiting. So there's a little bit of changing the guards there. We do have a host speaker series on Thursday talking about quantum internet. Again, that might be something interesting to you. So that's available for you to participate in. And then we do have a social event on Thursday night. It is currently sold out. So if you didn't get a ticket, you can keep an eye on the attendees mailing list. Sometimes people's plans change and they might say, you know, I have a ticket available for sale, and you can communicate with them on the list and possibly get a ticket if you weren't able to. Again, the agenda has all this information, so you can always find the information there. Next slide. And after today, if you're still not sure where to start, Quick Connections is a great place, but there is a blog posting that talks about new topics, interesting topics. Take a look at that. Maybe that'll give you a little bit of guidance of which sessions to attend. The agenda is always your friend. And as Rich mentioned, we do have the Zulip chat. We have just in person. Again, if you see somebody else with a new attendees little badge, yeah, you know, introduce yourself, say hi. You just never know who you might be able to connect with. I've had a lot of experiences where people work for the same companies, different countries, they've never met. It's a really awesome way to connect with new people. And also, if, you know, especially as new participants, if you have questions, do not be bashful to ask us, especially Secretariat staff. We have ideas of where things are, people that we can introduce you to if you are looking for something very specific. You know, we're here to help you. We want you to have a great experience, want you to come back. So if there's really anything we can do to help you, let us know. Let's see. Yeah, so there's just a couple things here as far as where to go for help. Registration desk, that's where you'll find a lot of the Secretariat staff, and we're also just running all over the place. The network problems, you'd want to go to the technical help desk. RFC editor, if you have questions about these RFCs, where do they come from, or how do you write one? That's a great place to go and just say hello. If you have questions about these protocol parameters that are coming from these drafts, the IANA desk would be happy to chat with you. And we mentioned the ombudsman team. If you have any issues, please do not hesitate to find one of them. You know, terminal room, those used to be very, very popular in the olden days, not so much anymore. Now it's more of a place to go to just have some quiet time and get work done. And then some area directors do hold office hours during the week, and you would find that on the agenda. So for example, transport area directors will set aside like an hour or two. And if you have specific questions about that area, they would be happy to talk to you. And next slide. I think that. So, yeah, above all, please enjoy this week. We're so glad that you're here. And just two additional reminders. I know the weather outside is not optimal. If you do need umbrellas, 7-Eleven does sell umbrellas fairly cheaply, just if anybody needs one. And then also just a reminder, at the registration desk, you'll find, Rich mentioned there's buttons. If you do speak a language, let us know so you can help your fellow IETFers. There are masks. We have masks there every day. If you need a change of mask, we've got some groovy colors too. So please help yourself to those masks. There's also COVID tests. If you want to just test yourself just to, you know, make yourself feel like, you know, you're doing okay, or if you're not feeling well, please let us know, and we can assist you in, you know, pharmacies or anything like that to help you out. But we do have some COVID tests out there. And yeah, we're open. If anybody has any questions, we are happy to answer. You're welcome to go to the microphone or talk to us afterwards. So welcome. We hope you have a wonderful week. Huh? And oh yeah, we're exactly 4 minutes over time. So we're gonna wrap it up. Yeah, we'll be hanging out here though. If you have any questions, please come and say hello. Have a wonderful week. Thank you very much for attending.